So the first step in the assembly process, you're going to want to get out the backlighting assembly. It's the component shown here. It's the largest piece in your kit. It has the plastic plexiglass on it. You're going to want to lay it onto a table as shown. The assembly process is pretty straightforward. With the backlighting assembly on your table, you're just going to bolt things onto and build up and out your washout booth. The only tools you're going to need for this build are going to be a Phillips head screwdriver and a 7/16 inch box wrench. We don't recommend using a cordless screwdriver or a ratchet wrench for the nuts. Both of these items, they believe it or not, they're going to slow you down, and you're not going to have the kind of the tactile feel and control that you will with just a Phillips head screwdriver and a wrench. So for this step, you're going to need 16 screws and the 4 pieces of Tinker Tube extrusions. With the backlighting assembly pushed over the edge of the table a little bit, you're going to take your screws, push them through the backlighting assembly and up into the pre-threaded holes on the ends of the Tinker tubing. You only need to insert the screws a couple of turns. Everything will, keep everything loose. Work in a crisscross pattern. Once all 4 screws are in, move on to the next piece of Tinker tubing, and then ultimately, once all 4 have been are in place, you'll come back with a screwdriver, and you'll just give them a gentle snug. You're not trying to over tighten them. You're just trying to keep them so they're not flopping around, and they're firm, they're snug, but you don't want to over tighten at this step. Once all 4 pieces of Tinker tubing have been installed, you should have something that looks like this. So for this step, you're going to need 2 of the zigzag panels, 8 of the long hex head bolts, 8 nuts, and 8 of the stainless steel rubber gasket washers. So for this step, you'll take one of your zigzag panels, and you'll notice that there are 4 kind of oval small holes. You want to take a bolt, push it through one of the holes, grab one of your washers with the rubber facing the aluminum. You want to press it on. It's a snug fit, and then you want to attach a nut. Work your way down the part until all 4 of the bolts have been pushed through and have washers and nuts. Once all your hardware has been installed into the zigzag panel, it'll look like this. The hardware should be just finger tight, actually a little bit sloppy because of the next step. You're going to need to slide the hex heads down into the Tinker tubing. Now you're going to take the zigzag panel and you're going to line up the hex head bolts with the channels in the Tinker tubing, and you're going to slide them down one at a time. If they're loose enough, they'll go right on in. But as you get to the bottom, what you'll notice is that you might get hung up. The idea is you want to make sure that the zigzag panel is on the outside of the backlighting component. So it should be on the outside. Here's a couple photos that demonstrate how it should look. Once you have your first zigzag panel installed, you'll want to go into your specialty hardware bag and pull out the small hex nuts. And then what you want to do is you want to slide them in so that the actual hex nut is in the channel of the Tinker tubing on the opposite side of the piece of Tinker tubing that you slid the zigzag into, and just give them a good firm hand tight. So we're going to show you the second zigzag panel being installed. I mean, it's the same process as the first. Push the long bolts up through the underside of the zigzag pattern, and you can just take the washers and just push them down real hard. It'll hold them in place, and then come back and put the nuts on. But you want the nuts to be kind of loose so that the bolts will fit into the channels of the Tinker tubing. Again, just guide each bolt into the groove. When you get down to the last one, it's not going to be the bolt that's hanging up. It's going to probably be the zigzag getting caught on the outer panel. Here again is a picture of how the zigzag panel should be on the outside of the backlighting assembly. With your second zigzag panel installed, you'll want to go and get your 2 remaining mini hex bolts and slide them down the opposite side of the piece of tinker tubing that the zigzag is attached to. Again, just slide them down, doesn't matter where. Get them in there and just tighten them up by hand. You'll use those later in a step down the road. For the next step, what you'll want to do is get out 18 screws and 18 of the rubber stainless steel washers, and then pre-install the washers onto the screws as shown in this photograph. When installing the side panels, make sure that you have the bends facing inward into the center of the washout booth. Both of the side panels are different. They're mirror images of one another, so it'll be pretty obvious if you can't get it to line up. What you'll want to do is you'll want to take one of your screws with the washer on it, and you want to push it from the inside of the washout booth outward. You want to do the 2 corners first, and then get a nut onto the back side, just finger tight. Everything going forward is going to be finger tight until the final tightening sequence. So you might need to move from side to side so you don't have to reach as far, and you'll just want to continue all around until you have the 9 screws installed with nuts on the back. The procedure for the second panel is the same as the first panel. We're going to show you, a different angle, kind of give you some maybe better perspective, better idea of how to do it. It's the same sequence. You'll want to put a screw through one of the corner holes, get a nut on the back, and then work up diagonal to the next hole. Once you get those 2 nuts, screws and nuts installed, the panel's not going to go anywhere, and you can just push the screws through and get the nuts on. Rather than reaching all the way across, it's a good idea to work about halfway up and then walk around the booth or spin it depending on your table situation. But again, everything is finger tight. You don't want to tighten anything too much. If you do, it might be hard to get screws through certain holes. For the next step, you're going to need your 2 corner brackets, 8 screws, and 8 nuts. You aren't going to need any washers for this step. So you'll want to take one of your corner brackets, stick it on the outside of the 2 panels, and then push a screw up from inside the booth out towards what will ultimately be the top. Start with one corner and then work to the other corner. Everything's finger tight. Now push the 2 remaining screws through the side panel and back panel and up through the corner bracket and secure the nuts finger tight. With all 4 screws installed on your corner bracket, it should look like this. The second corner bracket's done exactly the same way. Align the corner bracket on the outside of the panels, which ultimately will be the top. Get a screw through the side panel and then through the corner bracket, get a nut on it, only finger tight, and then put your 2 remaining screws up through the panel and then through the corner bracket and get some nuts on finger tight. For this step, you're going to need the front panel and 16 screws. So for this step, you're going to take the front piece and you're going to line up the screw holes with the tinker tubing. This is a really good shot showing the orientation of the front panel. You want to make sure that the multi-bend is facing out and not in. You could have it facing in if that's what you decided, but we recommend that the bend is facing out so it matches the edge of the utilitub. So when you start putting in the screws, you want to go diagonal. You want to put them in only a couple of turns. Work diagonal or crisscross, whichever you prefer, and then move to the other end, and you're just putting them in a couple of turns. Once ultimately you get them all in, you're gonna just gently snug them down like you did the other side of the tinker tubing. You can see here we're just getting them just barely snug, firm but not overly tight. When you first start doing this, the very first screw you tighten might be a little bit sloppy. You might need to give it just a little extra, but we're not going real tight. Keep it just again when we get to the final tightening sequence, that's when you'll give it a little bit of oomph. Once the front panel's installed, you'll want to take a screw, push it through this odd hole here, and then you'll push a rubber sealing washer on from the underside. And then you'll take a nut and you'll just give it a good snug. This isn't the final tightening. Just kind of cinch it up so it's a snug fit. Now it's time for the final tightening sequence. What you'll want to do is you want to start with your the Tinker tubing screws that are on the bottom, the ones that very first ones you installed in the assembly, and you'll just want to crank them up pretty tight. Then move to the top screws on the same side and snug them down real good. This is the final tightening sequence. You'll find that as you work your way through this final tightening sequence, the booth will get stronger and stronger. Once one side's complete, move on to the other side. Start with the bottom screws, and you want to work in a crisscross pattern when you're doing this. It's okay to do it in multi-steps, but you want to work crisscross and get them good and snug. With all the screws good and tight in your Tinker tubing, it's time to move on to the zigzag panels. For the zigzag panels, you're going to need a 7/16 inch wrench. Your first step, you should probably use your fingers to get the nuts pretty snug, and then you want to move on to the wrench. Remember, you're not trying to tighten everything too much. A wrench will deform the metal. You're just trying to get it snug enough so that the rubber sealing washers, what they'll do is they'll expand a little bit as they make a good seal. You don't need to crank these things too tight. Just a good firm tightening, and it will be sufficient. You can always come back and tighten them a little bit more down the road. Here's a photo of one of the washers, and you can see, as you tighten the nut, the rubber kind of bulges out a little bit. Again, you're not holding an engine into a car or a jet engine onto an airplane. You're just trying to snug it up so that water doesn't leak through that area. Now you want to move on to the other zigzag panel. Again, you just, hand tighten them, and then once you use the wrench, you're not putting a ton of force down. If you put too much force, you're going to deform the panel. There's so many bolts on this assembly, it's going to be plenty strong without over tightening these. In the next step, you're going to tighten up the that extra screw that's on the front panel. Just reach across and hold this screw with the screwdriver, and then tighten it from underneath with your wrench. While you're getting the last screw on the front panel, you can reach around and get the first bolt final tightening for your side panel. Now you can start working around your side panel, going from screw to screw, and just driving everything home, getting it good and snug, good and tight. Take your time, go one screw at a time. It doesn't take too long. What works best is to hold the screw with the screwdriver and use the wrench on the outside to tighten the screw in the nut. Once you get the middle screw on the side panel, what you should do is walk around to the other side and tighten the screws from the other side rather than reaching all the way across. So we'll give you a shot of the outside of the booth, kind of show you what's going on with the nuts. That's about what they should look like. A little bit of the bolt comes past the end of the nut, and you just have the wrench on one side, and you're working with the screwdriver on the other. I mean, basically the screwdriver just holds the screw in place, and then you use the wrench to tighten everything. Now we're moving on to the corner brackets. Again, it's the same thing. You just crank them up pretty good, and you don't need to over tighten anything. Just get it good and firm, and that'll be plenty. So we're repeating the sequence for the second panel. First, we're getting that one screw on the front panel, and then while we're there, we'll start tightening the screws on the side panel. Once that one's done, then you can see we just flip the wrench and then get that other screw while we're there. So it's important to mention at this point that where the zigzag panel overlaps the back panel or the backlighting assembly panel, there's going to be a gap. It might not look quite this extreme, but there's going to be a gap between the side panel and the zigzag panel because the back panel is wedged between them. It's not a problem. It's supposed to be that way. It's not going to create any issues, but when you see it, you might think maybe you did it wrong, but if you see it, that means you've done it correctly. So here we're going to show you, what you're doing with your wrench when you're tightening the side panels. The other side, you're holding the screws in place with your Phillips head screwdriver, and then a couple of half turns, and the nuts should be good and firm. Just work your way. Once you get about to the middle of the side panel, you should walk around and approach the panel from the other side, or you can just kind of, depending on your table, just spin the booth. So now with all the screws fully tightened, your booth is done. Congratulations. You might want to grab a person to help you flip it up, but there it is. That's what it'll look like. Great job. Now that you've completed the top part of your washout booth, we're going to start working on the washout tub. Install the legs per the instructions that came with your Utilitub, and then we're going to have you install the 3 reinforcing brackets on the tub, and it should look like this when you're done. When you're finished with this step, you'll have installed the 3 aluminum reinforcing pieces for the legs. We recommend installing the 2 side reinforcing brackets, but the rear reinforcing bracket is usually not needed. We included it anyway, just in case you wanted to install it, and in the instructions we'll show you how to install it and the sequence to do it. For this step, you'll need the 3 reinforcing brackets, 4 Phillips head screws, 4 nuts, and then you'll want to remove the leg levelers from the rear 2 legs on the Utilitub if you decide that you want to install the rear reinforcing bracket. So you'll want to start with the back reinforcing bracket first. What you'll need to do is remove the 2 leg levelers from the musty sink, and then it's a little tricky, but you'll need to hold the bracket up, hold the leg leveler in place, insert the square nut into the leg leveler channel, and then insert the musty screw through both pieces into the nut. Then you want to move to the other side and repeat the process. Again, it's a little tricky because you've got to hold the leg leveler in place, the bracket, the square nut, and then get a screw through there and thread it in. But once you get it through, you'll be good to go. Once the back bracket's installed, now you can move on to the sides. Because of the leg levelers kind of being in the way slightly of the holes, what we suggest is you take one of the screws and you kind of almost need to kind of thread it through the hole and through the edge of the leg leveler, and then you'll attach the nut. The nut kind of rides on top of the leg leveler, but it works. So you'll move to the other side. Again, you kind of take the screw and kind of have to thread it through the hole. The hole's plenty big, but the leg leveler can kind of interfere a little bit. So you just kind of have to like thread the screw kind of through the gray leg of the washout booth, because the plastic of the leg leveler is a little in the way, but it works. And then just put a nut on the other side and tighten it up. Now the fun part, mating the top of the washout booth to the sink. So what you want to do is just lift it in and kind of fit it in and give it a couple good hits. It'll be a nice snug fit, but it goes right in. Now you can install your table tray. And next, install your screen holder. And finally, put a screen in to see how that looks. In this step, we're going to show you how to install the brackets that will secure the upper part of your washout booth to your utilitub. So in this step, what you'll want to do is loosen the nuts on those two small bolts that you had installed into the Tinker tube when you did the zigzag piece. Just slide the bracket up, give them a finger tight, and then tighten them down real good with a wrench. So now we're going to show you how to install the brackets for your backlighting. Your kit comes with 4 brackets. They've got a bunch of different slots on them, and if you notice around the outside of the back of the washout booth, there's a multitude of different slots. You can mount these on the sides. We're showing you how to mount them on the top and the bottom in this example, which is what we recommend for the LED lights that we've tested that work great with our kit that's sold on Amazon. You would want to install these. You just simply put a screw through the bracket and then up through the supports around the outside, and then put a nut on them. Another interesting thing is that these brackets, they rotate, so you can kind of get the lighting right where you want it. Just remember, anything electrical being used around your washout booth, just make sure it's hooked up to a tested GFI. Your washout booth is now fully assembled and ready for the final step, which is siliconing the inside corners and edges of your washout booth.